ferrying passengers between Port Angeles in Washington, across the Strait of Juan de Fuca. The Black Ball Ferry, with its curious black and red flag, carries passengers, some of whom will be hiking the West Coast Trail on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. The West Coast Trail runs about 47 miles from Bamfield to Port Renfrew on Vancouver Island. It was originally constructed because so many ships were wrecking along the Vancouver coast that the Canadian government decided something needed to be constructed to help the suffering boaters who needed to be rescued. Today you can hike the trail, runs about 47 miles, and see some of the evidence of previous shipwrecks, some more recent than others. The largest loss of life was the Valencia in 1906. 133 passengers lost their lives. You won't find evidence of that shipwreck any longer on the West Coast Trail, but there are many other interesting things to be found along the way. Some so interesting they get people into their own sort of trouble, and between 60 and 100 people need to be evacuated from the trail every season. As you hike the trail, you can't help but wonder how people could have possibly gone through this forest had their ships been wrecked before the trail was constructed. The forest is so thick and dense, full of mud, roots. There's also steep cliffs that are just basically impassable, that you just can't imagine how shipwrecked people could have possibly tried to cross this territory before the trail was constructed. Before this bridge was built, would there be any way around this gorge? Nowadays, they've even constructed ladders to help you scale up and down the steep cliffs towards the bridges, some of which are constructed as suspension bridges. Sometimes there's cable cars along the way, but there's ladders everywhere. The trail often gets tiring after a while because you're lugging your heavy backpack up and down these ladders, but it's always worth it for the different views that you get. This is one of the larger ladder sections. It's a long way down. In places they've constructed boardwalks, some of which are manicured quite nicely. Easy to walk on, level, not too slippery. But then in other sections, the boardwalks are old, broken, slippery. Sometimes it's even easier just walking through the mud. Really enjoyed walking on the boardwalks. Helps your mind just relax and think about whatever, drift from thought to thought. Sometimes you think about how the forest always overtakes these things that we've built. Sometimes the boardwalks reminded me of the backs of an old woman's hands. The point is that it's just a safe place to think. Think about whatever as you walk along. Eventually, however, the boardwalks kind of end. They'll get too broken up and you'll just end up in the mud again and again. At times the trail doesn't even resemble a trail, it's just steeper sections. Here we see about a 6-foot section, just vertical roots you have to climb up. Very difficult to overcome these sections. It takes quite a while, and it can tire a person out. Here's what they call a derelict donkey engine. There's two of these along the trail, left over from the old logging days. Can't help but get covered with quite a bit of mud as you go along the trail. There's plenty of wildlife to be seen. Here's an eagle. I was watching him, or he was watching me. Later on, down the trail, I saw another eagle, but I couldn't help but think it was probably actually the same eagle keeping an eye on me. You might see a whale, deer, bear, cougar, wolf. Oh, this is just part of another ferry boat that takes you across Nit-Nat Narrows. Couldn't help but take pictures of one of my favorite sights, a beautiful cat. This is Susiat Falls, one of the many spectacular sights on the trail. Hole in the wall rock. One of the many surge channels along the coast. The trail splits in many places, and you can choose between the forest or hiking along the beach. Often you want to hike along the beach. This is Owen Point, one of the spectacular cave areas not to be missed on the West Coast Trail. Make sure you explore the caves during low tide so that you're not caught as the tides come in and find yourself in a dangerous situation. All in all, the hike takes between 4 and 8 days to accomplish, depending on your speed and your physical fitness level. I want to leave you with this beautiful image of a stand of trees out in the ocean. That was just one of my favorite sights of the West Coast Trail.